Hi, welcome to the next part of Etude number 2 for the Villa-Lobos 12 and 12 challenge. That's 12 Villa-Lobos etudes across 12 months, one a month. We are currently on Etude number 2 here. There are a lot of big shifts in here, so here are the main tips for shifts. First thing, eyeball the new position, laser ahead. Use a guide finger if you can, and use your elbow to facilitate the shift up. Alrighty, micro study number 12 kicks off with our A major chord, which we should by now have under our fingers. It then moves into the relative minor for this key, F sharp minor. So this is a chord type 4. Why? Because we have a full 6-string barre with an E minor shape, which is then just shifted up to fret 2 for the F sharp minor. Hammer on 1 to 4, and then we have the melody at the top. Now, from a classical point of view, there's one little hack that makes this easier. I do a hinge bar. There we go, you can see my finger hinging into that open string pull off. And again, nice and slowly. It just makes it a lot easier for me to do. Releases the pressure of the full barre on my fingers, gives me a moment to breathe before I'm back in, and then I just slowly put the finger back down. The next is chord type 5. Now this is actually, there's 2 different variations of chord type 5, which we're going to see in the next couple of micro studies. So this one has the arpeggios at the top, the broken chord, and then a half bar into a melody. Now remember, for the half bar, you don't want your fingers straight or your fingers below. You want to just a little flexion at the tip joint and a ramp and your thumb behind your first finger. Now this is actually a C sharp 7 chord. So again, we have a series of 5 1s or 1 5s. So we've gone from the F sharp minor chord to this one. So the main thing to do is to make sure that that half bar is in place across 3 strings. And then you're into the next chord type. Okay, the next chord is a chord type 3A. So if you remember, 3 was this one here. Because it generally stayed in position and used open strings. Well, here instead of the open strings, and we're going to use a barre. Now this is just a A major 13 chord. It's got the F sharp in it, or A major 6 if you want to. And there's 2 ways of attacking it. I prefer to use my first finger on a 5th fret, but you can actually use an open string. So if you come from the chord before, so that's the open string variation, and then mine. It's easier for me. I'm already using that finger anyway at the top, and it allows me to play a full arpeggio across all 6 strings. Okay, putting micro study 12 together, it sounds like this. And then we're into the next micro study. Main points for micro study 12 and 13. Know your bar chord types. Is it a full bar, half bar, hinge bar? Is it an upper hinge bar or a lower hinge bar? That's the first thing. Is your left and right hand connected? Are you using any open strings? Because there is a possibility of using, obviously, for the one chord type, an open string. This kind of fine detail helps you memorize this piece. Let's move on. And welcome to micro study number 13. Right, the great thing about micro study number 13, there are only 2 chord shapes to learn. The first one is based on the A minor chord shape, but but shifted up to the 4th fret and broken apart into an arpeggio. This is a chord type 4 bar because we're using a full barre, so it's kind of like the F sharp minor one. There is nothing too difficult about this other than making sure that your elbow revolves around your first finger as you move your fingers. So if you watch my elbow as I'm doing this, you'll see it in action. And then we're into the next chord type. The main thing is to not squeeze too much using leverage. Do not squeeze with your thumb. The key point for all barres of a 6-string variety is just pull back gently or let your hand drop gently, just to let gravity do the work and make sure you're not squeezing, because by this point in the study your hand is going to hurt. Let's move on. Okay, the next 3 bars of micro study number 13 are the same chord shape. It is a dominant chord shape based off the E7 open string and then shifted round with the barre. Now this is a chord type 5 because here we're going to be using a hinge bar at the top into a broken arpeggio. So it looks like this. So I'm using the hinge bar at the top, and I'll move sideways so you can see. Barring at all on the bottom 3 strings, just the top 3. Okay, so that is key to getting that so that you don't use a lot of energy. So it's this shape, that arpeggio, and it starts at fret 4. We then move to C sharp, and then we move down to F sharp. And if you recognize that sound, you'll realize that it's just a cycle of 5. Because Villa-Lobos is now trying to take us home, back to, and he's going to do it via a little slip into little interrupted cadence in the next bit. To the B7 chord. Alrighty, welcome to micro study number 14. Now this is quite an interesting one because we're going to be doing a 2-parter for the first bar of it. It's a B7 chord, but it has 2 different fingerings for the way down. So let's just dive straight in. That's already come up before in the first half. I'm going to repeat. Possible to do the A, F sharp to D sharp here in the first position, and in fact I would suggest you do to get into the next chord, the C diminished. Alrighty, first repeat, here we go. And then into the next chord. So I would highly recommend that because it's just easier to jump into the C. Again, a 5th fret hammer on there, which you should have been practicing. So hopefully that bar is not a problem for you. Alrighty, so here we have a chord type 2, again because of the open strings. It was the same as the previous chord, the B7 chord, that is also chord type 2, but this is a chord type 2A. So if we have a look at it, we have 3, 1, 4, 2, open B to shift. Now you should be quite familiar with this shape because it comes from that B7 chord before. Alright, so the only kind of tough challenge for this one is literally going to be this. You have a lot of 1/4 hammer-ons, so I would practice that in little sections like that. to really get that. It's a great bar to just work the 1/4, hammer on and pull off action. Alrighty, so we're now at bar 23 and back to chord type 3A, which is our open E chord, E7 chord, or in this case it's an E7 9 chord. Now it's chord type 3 because we have all the open strings being played in one position, obviously open position. So there's no real difficulty to this now because you've met this chord once before when you went up the Bach pattern. So it's just a slight variation on that idea with the pull off on the top string. So make sure you get that wonderful 7/9 sound, which is what Villa-Lobos was aiming for because we're heading home. So that's just a 5/1. There's nothing out of the ordinary here. It's just a fantastic walk through the cycle of 5 with a slight interruption just after the B7 chord. So instead of expecting a 1/5, it should have done this. But Villa-Lobos doesn't. He's a little cheeky here and into the 5. So it's a lovely, sweet little moment. Milk it for all it's worth. And then we're into the next chord, which is... Okay, welcome to microstudy number 15. This is a wonderful harmonic twist to the end of the Etude number 2 tail. Here we have an F major 7 chord with flat 2 chord, which is at slightly odds with the A major key, but it sounds wonderful. There are 2 types of fingerings for this. I'm going to show you Villa-Lobos' intended fingering and then the workaround. This is categorized by me as a chord type 2A because of this here, because it uses the top 3 strings, but actually technically it is probably a chord type 1 as well because it uses an open E to shift. Villa-Lobos' fingering asks for an open A to 8th fret hammer on, and that you play the F major chord here. Now to begin with, it's going to be 3, 2, 1, open E, 2, 3, 1, 4. Now you could think of this as just slightly off an A minor chord if you wanted, but it's an F to top E, open E, and then I come down into different fingering, 1, 3, 4, and then I hammer on because it's all secure, and I know that I can hammer on with my 4th finger because I've been practicing it from. I'm not concerned about missing that. Okay, so let's have a look at that in action. Now the only thing really to make a mental note of, and I sometimes trip up and forget, is this. See if you can pick it up. Don't be too loud on your open E. Okay, so that was Villa-Lobos' intended fingering. Alternative fingering is... Alrighty, thank you for staying to the end of this video. I hope you found something worthwhile here. This is all part of the Villa-Lobos 12 and 12 challenge that is running this year. Please get involved. There is a link below where you can get the free study guide for this awesome etude. There is also a Facebook page, and of course there are tons of videos now up on Instagram. Everybody is sharing their variations, their fingerings, and their thoughts on it. So get involved with the conversation. Let us know what you think. Thank you.